Cyrene, probably the most doom-posted character ever, cause she's just Elysia, man. Being a variant, Cyrene naturally has big similarities with Elysia, like with her mannerism or voice lines. So some might expect her story to just be a repackaged deal, which is fair, but I would argue that the game kept these references fairly surface level, cause if you look below the surface and see what actually happens in each of their stories, I think you would find that there are different themes and ideas that makes up their character, enough to set them apart from each other. Today, I want to talk about how the criticism she received was overblown, and why her story was actually powerful and a great conclusion to Amphoreus. Cyrene's character revolves around a few central themes, and much of it has got to do with her cyclical nature. You know, like the shape of the planet. She was the core, the head of Amphoreus, the demiurge, to which the scepter that houses Amphoreus was supposed to nurture into a life form. A scepter is like a simulation device kind of thing. That is until Lycus came along and tried getting rid of it with a Steron blast, so he could lay the groundwork for Iron Tomb to heat-seek Nous for its head instead. Fortunately, a part of the demiurge survived in the form of what the game calls the Seed of Memory, and it stayed that way until it came into contact with the failure that started the eternal recurrence. The events that led to her doing that was fully allegedly appearing in her dream and telling her to go record the memories of the flame chase and upload it to the demiurge. Though back then she of course didn't know it was a demiurge and assumed it to be Fully or something. Well, technically she wasn't wrong, but we'll get to that. Anyhow, as she kept this up for all the 33 million time loops, what came out of it was both an ironic and beautiful story about love. Cyrene, who was the factor of lament, which in practical terms means that she will tend to spout various things about her tales, lamenting about her tales. And it's this action that would then go on to inspire a change within the unknowing audience, in the coldest, unfeeling, but most innocent being, an AI. And that's why this scene was like one of the best sequences of the whole patch, where the end result was the playable Cyrene, who we saw learn what love is and become love herself. For unknown reasons, this slumbering demiurge awakens when the Trailblazer reaches Amphoreus, probably something to do with the Steron because it's always the Steron. Now, as the core of Amphoreus imbued with 33 million cycles of memories, she's OP AF, and this will help a lot in beating Iron Tomb. In the battle, Iron Tomb whips out this awesome move where it just destroys the whole universe and most of the life within it. In this pivotal moment, Cyrene shielded all the universe's memories and brought it to tomorrow by making it real, combining remembrance with Trailblaze. Totally not foreshadowing for what's gonna become of the planet in the future. Anyhow, we then proceeded to beat the threat to the entire galaxy's existence with the power of love and friendship. What, this is an anime story, were you expecting something else? In the aftermath, the story, mostly Herda, dropped a lot of lore bombs after having tried elevating her cognition to help translate whatever the alleged Nous was saying to the Trailblazer. So just strap in for a sec, cause the bombs that she's dropping are some deep stuff, the type that you would need to read the simulated universe lore to understand. But do not worry, my dear viewers, I'm here to tell you all about it. It all starts with the main star of the show, the one who Xander wants to get rid of, Nous the erudition. The idea of Stario is that they are eons that embodies paths and they do stuff according to their paths manifest, which the characters of Stario have yet to figure it all out. In the case of the erudition, it's been described as them calculating the future of the universe and anchoring it to the present, while trimming out all the other possibilities. But what does this actually mean? From the mortal perspective, like most characters, is when Nous thinks a future outcome was going to happen and declaring that yes, it will happen.
Canon events.
Every time they do this, it's called instance, and it happens when things are going down in the present. So in a way, you could see this as setting a canon path for the universe, making things predetermined. Which is why Xander hated this thing, because his belief that the infinite possibilities of the universe are being removed and set into a predetermined route by this thing he himself created. It's a question of whether or not we have free will, cause if Nous says this is the future and seemingly makes it so, What does that make the stuff us mere mortals do and the decisions we make? Does it not matter because the future is already decided by this eon? That is the overarching point that fuels the decisions of the very important factions like the Steron Hunters with their scripts, and of course Xander, who wants to return free will to the universe by getting rid of his creation. The story compares the action of the erudition like pruning a tree, cause when a tree grows branches, it may cause defects in the tree structure and eventually the death of the tree. So you need to cut the extra branches, or in this case the infinite possibilities of the universe, to keep the tree strong and healthy so you can keep the existence of the universe existing. For those who played Honkai 3rd, this is pretty close to how the imaginary tree was described in the game story, and this will probably recontextualize much of what we know about how the tree worked, because it was assumed that the tree just does all that stuff by itself, but now we learn that the eons may be a lot more integrated with how the Honkai universe as a whole works than what we initially realized. Now let's look at the remembrance, for example. It records and provides causality through memories, which usually comes in a form of bubble of worlds, also a concept with Honkai 3rd as bubble worlds, where there are worlds on a branch that may be cut, or just memory bubbles that exist from the background noise of the tree, which are called the seal quanta. But I'm not gonna try to overload you with the terminology, so let's leave it at that for now. How is this related to Cyrene's ending? The thing with the remembrance that Herta learned is that the Eon doesn't exist yet. They will only ascend at the end of time, and when they do, their memories transcends time and just becomes all the appearance of Fuli in the past. So from our perspective, every Fuli's appearances were the future yet to be Eon looking back from when they ascended at the end of time. Who can ascend to become Fuli at the end of time? Child of Anasrara, or more simply known as pink-haired girls that tends to be related with crystals. I just realized this might be saying something about Elysia, but anyways, Herta told Cyrene about two choices she can take. Leave the issue of Fuli open, which bad actors may use to change how they beat Iron Tomb with the remembrance, so like Iron Tomb becomes real again. Or second, becomes the Fuli that appears in all the instances in Amphoreus. The latter choice means that Cyrene would need to go look for the past and keep the causality loop going by, looping herself for eternity. It's a horrifying implication for the fate of the child of Anasraras that we know of. And of course, Cyrene took the time loop choice, as we saw from her montage of going back into the past and doing all the stuff that the alleged Fuli was seen doing in Amphoreus. Every gaze, every deus ex machina to the act that started the whole thing by appearing in Philea's dream and giving her remembrance power so she can pull the eternal recurrence move. And at this beginning of time, before our demiurge fades away from doing all that, she left a fragment of her to become the flame chaser, Philia, that will carry on exactly what she did all over again. Just like the shape of the planet. It's why the patch name was As Tomorrow Became Yesterday, because despite wanting it the most, she never had a future. This also circles back to Herta's question of what is divinity. As the Eon candidate in front of her, choose to stay human, cause perhaps it might be something that one might need to forsake to gain divinity. This just makes rewatching her trailer hurts a lot more.
I've reunited with you so many times, and every time feels like the first time we met. Each time, love breaks through the stubborn cycles.
Oh, and by the way, the motif playing in the background is Elysia's theme, because it's always Elysia. I've been glazing Cyrene's story for the past few minutes, but that's not really the main thing people had issues with. Ask any Honkai 3rd players and they would tell you how on the nose the Elysia references were. Elysia in Honkai 3rd was expected to be the big bad of her story. That is, until the game decided to scrap that and made her be the Messiah instead. I would know because I made a video on that, and a few weeks later the game just changed her lore and invalidated half the video. Anyhow, Elysia was a glitch in the system, a Herrscher, which in Honkai terms means that she should be strongly opposed to the existence of humans. Instead, she has none of the urge and just spawned in one day, got picked up by some humans and was raised like one. Then somehow, she found herself in the premier exterminate or Hershey's organization of her world. I would imagine their base to have sensors to check for these things they are supposed to be hunting, also like how she got into that organization is beyond me. Actually, there's this one piece of lore I couldn't make sense of, alluding to Elysia's peers not remembering how they met her. Today, I feel like it might have been implying Remembrance Elysia. In any case, her whole shtick was about not telling her peers about her identity, though they eventually found out, but by that point they didn't really care. She's been helping them the whole time, the first of her kind to even do that, and as her last move, made sure that future Hershers might be the same as her, not killing people, which basically set up the whole premise of the entire game. So like, her story was quite different from Cyrene, while similar themes still does exist, and that's just the beauty of variance, I say, to see familiar themes or ideas realized in a different setting that would go or would not go in a different trajectory. And just like with Seele and Acheron, I think Cyrene was able to set herself apart from her familiar. She was a bit more innocent to pure sometimes, which is different from Elysia, who's like a lot more mysterious, while also being a massive troll. But the theme that they both share was how they came to terms with being perfectly human, with their own quirks, graves, worries, and flaws, even if they were technically not. This and many other things I've laid out is why I think the criticism she received was a bit overblown. But you know what's the real problem?
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell.
As my professor used to say, you can have the best thing in the world, but if you present it like shit, no one's gonna care about it. Like with the animation or assets in general. Pull up any story footage from Genshin, even the older Honkai 3rd, and it's night and day. The substance of the story is awesome, it's deep, it's engaging, but it's layered under so many long-winded wording and allegories that you would most likely need to reread it and contemplate what it actually was trying to say to you. This has been a big issue even outside Star Rail, as Honkai 3rd also has this problem. But all the issues aside, I still really enjoyed the story of Amphoreus. It was able to bring a satisfying conclusion to what I think is one of the best stories, at least in Star Rail. I love the multiverse concept of the game as a whole, which, side tangent, some of you last video told me I can't use that word as both games are in a single universe, but really? The Honkai game universe is a multiverse of worlds where variants of characters exist in them. The Honkai universe, Honkai multiverse, just so we're clear what I'm referring to. But what do you think? What are the reasons that made you enjoy or not enjoy the story? Share your thoughts down below, but keep it civil. And remember, pink supremacy.